Welcome to Spiritual Vacancy, the space where we stop running from the void and start filling it. I'm Brooke Ann, I'm a professional psychic medium, and in each episode, we dive deep into the practices, stories, and insights that turn spiritual hunger into spiritual wholeness. If you've been feeling like something is missing, you're in the right place. Let's fill the gap together, and your journey starts now. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us at, whatever time it is where you are. Welcome in. And today I have my dear friend Denise from New Perspective Tarot. We get to hear all about her life, her journey, what she's got going on, and where you can find her services at. So welcome in, Denise.
Hello.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So Denise lives in Myrtle Beach. She's actually one of my mentorship students, even though she was a medium way before she even had me teach her anyways, or help guide her. Not even just teach, just guide her in her journey with spirit, because it's already there. You know, she's already been working on this for years, and what you do is amazing. So, I appreciate what you do and how you work and the ethics of who you are as a whole. And with that, how did you kind of get started? Because you've been doing tarot for many, many years.
26 or 7 years. Well, the whole journey started back in, I would say about 1999 is when I started.
Okay.
And the way I ended up on the path was I was not into anything metaphysical, holistic, new age, anything, but I had experienced my mom had gotten cancer. And so, in the process of researching medications and traditional medicine and then holistic medicine, kind of opened up the door to that arena. But she ended up passing from the cancer. And then my dad passed from cancer 18 months later. So, to lose two like really super close people in that short period of time really kind of blows your whole world open and makes you start to think like there has to be way more to life than just going to work and paying the bills and getting up and doing it again and just like living this really choppy non-existent life is what it felt like could be because just grief alone, I mean, being a medium, you know that already, and from whatever losses you might have had in your own life, it just really it can, I shouldn't say it automatically busts you open because anybody could be sent any different way. You know, it could send you deeper into a non-belief or no faith or anything of that nature, or it could really blow you up wide open. And it was funny because between my mom and my dad passing, James Van Prague was just starting to come out in mediumship. John Edward was on the radio. He didn't have his show yet. But we would joke around with my dad saying, okay, well, God forbid if this ever happens, you got to come through this and that. You know, like we would start having all these conversations. I started reading books. I started going to the New Age section in the bookstore. Just from the holistic treatments that we were researching for my mom with her cancer and stuff like that. And then, you know, you creep to this section and this section and this section. So I just kept getting my hands on every single book that kind of just spoke to me. Like The Power of Now, the Celestine Prophecy, Conversations with God. Like I have this one shelf on my bookshelf that's like my Bibles because there's that common thread that really just spoke to my heart and that, you know, and just speaking of life in general, our spirit, I got into listening to near-death experiences, all of this. So I had an aunt, it was my dad's cousin who lived out in Santa Fe, and she knew that I was on this path and researching all these things, and she was a very worldly woman. And so when I went out to visit her, she goes, "Well, have you ever done anything with tarot cards?" And I was like, "What are they?" And she was like, "Oh, I'll show you," because she had taken a class or whatever. And so she gets a couple of decks out of her closet and she shows me, and like I don't know, fireworks went off because I started to look at the cards and I was like, oh my God, these things tell a story. Like I have to learn this. And so she was like, yeah, and like, she told me a little bit of things and that was it, but that was not it for me because as soon as I got home from this vacation, I tell my husband, I was like, you have to take me to Barnes and Nobles. And he goes, why? And I go, I have to get a deck of tarot cards. He was like, what? So now he was raised Catholic in his early years, so he knew something about it. I knew nothing about it. So I had no good, bad, or indifferent stigmatism to it whatsoever. I didn't even know they existed. So begrudgingly, he took me to the store and I got my first deck and I got my book and I knew nobody. We were living in New Jersey at the time and I didn't even know where you would find people to talk to about it or whatever. So I just memorized my deck and read my book and did all these things. And I just knew it was going to be a part of my life. I didn't know how. I didn't know any readers. I knew nothing really about the world of it. And that's how it started.
And then it just kind of flourished. So it's crazy. Like you had no interest, no nothing. And it
No
was just like,
knowledge. Yeah.
just that one
Nothing.
person kind of telling you, like, hey, look at this.
Yeah.
And it
And
just
then I
opened
just
up.
saw them and I knew. Like I know Lee's story, like a lot of people learn about it in college or their girlfriends teach them about it or a family member like gifts them a deck or whatever.
Right.
I had zero. And so like I literally was starting from the very, very beginning because I knew nothing about any of it. And then probably I'll give you like the short version because 26 years is a long time, but
Right.
but after, so I just, in New Jersey, I really didn't do much other than just self-study. I looked at the cards, I memorized, I practiced them. I did it like traditional school way, the book and memorization and all that other kind of stuff. And then we moved to Pennsylvania. And then I was like, there has to be other people that know something about this. So that's when I started like my little personal spiritual journey, besides like being embedded in books and stuff like that. I looked up places. There was one little witchy store that was not far from me, and I had gone there and I had gotten my very first reading. So I was doing this probably for a couple of years. We moved in 2002, so about 3 years in. And I had never gotten a reading before, so I didn't even know what a reading looked like. And there was no YouTube, and there was no
No,
Facebook, and there was none of this stuff
no.
where you could see any of this in action, which I think is better for me because then I would want to try to emulate someone else's. So it was probably better I didn't know.
Yes.
But this lady read for me, and I was like, that does not feel right. Like it was just a
Oh,
very general flip a couple of cards. This somebody might get ill, but it won't be too bad. And you have a nice partner. And I was like, this does not feel right at all. Because when I was reading the cards, I kept feeling like really in-depth, personal, like the pitfalls that we come up against, or like our own personal struggles internally. Like my stuff was deep, and I'm like, what is
yeah.
this? And I ended up leaving there. She hugged me. She liked my energy. She wanted me to join her coven. And I was just like, so
You're
I
like,
was like,
no.
I'm a little scared. Now, mind you, I did continue to go back to that location though. I did not join because she would have meetups. And
Okay.
so she would do meetups, so I got to meet other people, which
Uh,
I'm still friends with to this day. But I had to
oh,
I had to exit when she finally said, "No, this tarot card can only mean this." And I was like, "Oh, that's a
oh,
bunch of BS." So I was
yeah.
like, "There's no way that that's, the only way to do
Right.
things."
Right.
But so in the spiritual journey, I ended up finding out I have woven myself in and out of, I can't even countless spiritual groups over the years. And it's no different than high school or politics or any other groups. Like I myself went into this thinking, oh, if everybody's spiritual, everyone's heart's going to be open. They're all like honest and good people and they have no egos and all this other stuff. And then I was just sorely mistaken in that area.
So disappointed.
Yeah. So I found out, experience firsthand, that you just kind of tiptoe your way through, and then the people that you're meant to stick with, you do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the ones that you don't, and that's all
Right.
good. There's
It
different
is.
strokes for different folks. But
Great.
the way I ended up opening up into doing this for other people was, of course, who do you practice on? All your friends and all your family. You drag them
Mhm.
in, and you're like, come on, I'm going to do this. But then you question yourself because you're just like, but I know you. I know what you're going through. I know what I want for you. So how much am I influencing this or whatever?
Right.
Well, one 4th of July, we were having a barbecue. We lived in a community in Pennsylvania, and all of our friends were getting together at our house, but they were having like an event in the like on the field in the community or whatever, and they were gonna have a card reader there. Well, we ended up getting there too late, and my one friend's family was so disappointed because they wanted readings. And my friend Wanda goes, "Oh, well, Denise reads cards. She'll read them for you." Now, I don't remember throwing my hat in the ring and was not prepared for this, and really just prayed they would forget. So we went back to the house. Yes, I swear to God, as much as you want to, and you'll probably relate to this back in the beginning of your mediumship journey.
Yeah.
You want to, but you're scared shitless and you're just like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, how do I do
Right.
this? You know, that
Right.
first time out is just really scary and rough,
Yeah.
but it could also be your very best and most enlightening experience you ever have. So we come back to the house, we barbecue, we eat, we're all sitting around and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, good, no one has said a word. It's dark out. Now, this is summer, so you know it's late in the evening. And Wanda goes, my friend Wanda's like, go get your cards. Aren't you going to read for them? And I'm like,
You're like
why?
looking around like, who are you talking to? Like,
So I was like, oh yeah, sure. Hold on a second. So I went in my bedroom where I had my cards and my thing or whatever. And I went in there and I was like scared shitless. I'm like, how am I gonna do this? What am I gonna do? So I held my cards and all I heard, and I swear to God, I think it was my mom, but all I heard was just go out there, you're gonna be fine. And then I felt calm. So I
yeah.
was like, whatever. If I screwed up, I screwed up. You know, at this
Right.
point, what am I gonna do? So the funny thing is it was her uncle, her nephew, and her niece.
Okay.
And so two men and a woman, right?
Yeah.
Now I had only really traditionally read for women in all of my practice because it was all my friends, and men just don't want to really do any of that stuff. They don't want to come near you. They really are not into it. Well, these two guys were. So the uncle decides he's going to go first, right? So I set everything up. I don't even know. I'm like, oh, I've never done this before. Like, what spread am I going to do? What am I going to, how am I starting this? Like, I never practiced all this stuff. When you're friends and you're having coffee, you just throw cards out and you read them
Right.
and you're done, you know?
Right.
So whatever, it just came to me like whatever I had been learning, and I placed all the things out. And to this day, we're talking like 27, 28 years ago, right? I
Yeah.
throw all these cards out and I start talking to him about I just start talking through the meanings of the cards that I know. And I'm like, okay, well, this is kind of where you are now. And he was like in a retirement position. I go, but there's something to do with real estate or like doing your own, being on your own or doing your own business. And he was like falling out of the chair. He's like, I just retired and I just sold some real estate and I want to open my own painting business. And he was like going through all this. So now I'm in my head hearing ding, 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 tell her what she's
Right.
doing, Johnny, you know? So now I'm like, oh my God, this really works. So I just kept going with everything. Like I didn't feel the fear and I just went with everything that I felt or whatever. And then the nephew went next and he was like hit after hit or whatever. And that was really great. And other people were kind of in earshot, you know, but I was still far away.
Right.
And then the niece comes to the table. And it's funny because we were talking about that telepathy tape thing and not being able to read people well.
Yes.
I was hitting a brick wall, hitting a brick wall. Thank God she didn't sit down first. Well, I come to find out all these years later, she's bipolar. She's manic bipolar. And
Oh,
so she didn't want to be read
right.
or was in that state. Like, because I did a readings, I would do readings for them all the time, and the family would come, you know, throughout the years and stuff.
Right.
And later on, she had told me that's how come you weren't able to read for me that day. It was either medication, it was either her being shut down, whatever the case, but she
Right.
didn't want anybody to know that. So she couldn't confirm a lot of the things I was saying either, because again, people were within earshot. So
Right.
it was very interesting for the first time out the gate to have that all of that experience in one little sit down, you know,
Right.
like it wasn't
Oh, yeah.
it was baptism by fire that night. But I always accredit my friend for kicking me in the ass into the middle of the arena because who knows when I would have said, listen, like you said, I've been studying mediums and mediumship for 25 years, right? Not me personally doing it.
Right,
Some
but
has leaked in through the readings, but I take a long time to get to the the entry point
which I
of
respect
my own
though.
accord, you
But I
know?
mean, that's something to respect because you honor it. You want to take your time. You want to make
Yeah,
sure you're doing it right. You don't want to just, I think that's sometimes the problem nowadays is like people are so impatient. They just want the title. It's that ego you were talking about where you were like, I didn't think there would be ego in the spiritual world, but there is. Everybody's so ego. They take one class and they're like, I'm a tarot reader. And they're sitting there reading from the book and charging money and they have
yeah,
no idea what they're doing. They don't know the different meanings. They haven't it's like that tarot reader that you met the first time
yeah.
where you're like, but that's not right because where's the soul in it? Where's the
Yes.
passion? Why are you not connecting with the card more? It means so much
Well,
more than that,
it's
right?
it's very interesting because there is such a listen, tarot's a tool. Tarot has a bad name, right? A bad rap,
Right,
or has up until now, but there's it's
right,
still if it's in the benefit if it's in the higher realm now, it's still 60-40 in my book
right,
because there are still people that have had bad experiences. And I've said over the years, a hammer could build a house or kill someone. It's a
right,
tool, and it's what you do with the tool that's
right,
important.
right,
And readers are like fingerprints. Every person does it differently because your soul is involved in the reading,
right,
and your life experience and your lens and your understanding and your own intuition, like all of that. It's a giant soup, that goes
right,
together that really creates a reading and a partnership with the person that you're reading for. And the way I always think of it is that you're like connecting with their higher self in the hopes that you're relaying to them something they want to know from themselves.
right,
Whether they want to hear it or not is a whole different ball game, but
right, which,
but and I also ask to use words that would most resonate with them because I could have a vocabulary, which is X, Y, and Z, but
right,
if I use this word, it's going to have so much more meaning for them. So even just trusting what you get in the way of if it's even when you look at a card and what's coming to you is opposite of what you know the card to mean,
right,
trust is a humongous factor in this process.
yeah,
Lots of people could be tarot readers and they could be, I guess you would call them like learned or scientific tarot readers.
right,
You don't have to be using your intuition to do it, and you can do it mechanically, just like how you would do a mathematical equation. Like you can
right,
do that 100%. Um, but that's not how everybody does it.
right,
There's a million different schools of thought on the different systems. There's a lot of different systems that are out there. Um, but it's just very interesting. But going back to the finding your people thing. So after that episode and just like practicing and finding more people or whatever, my husband suggests to me that I should go to a conference in New York City called Reader Studio. And I was like, I don't belong there. Like, are you kidding me? I've been practicing at home for 5 years. Like, what are you thinking? Actually, it was even longer than that. The very first reader studio I went to was, I believe, 2013.
okay,
So I had been doing it for like maybe 8, 9 years
yeah.
before he had suggested that. And he thought he thought my little voodoo phase would kind of like fall away, but it never did. So he jumped on the if you can't
Your
beat him, join
photo
him,
fish.
thing. But it was just very funny. So he said, no, he goes, I'm sure they have a payment plan. I'll help you, just go. And so I ultimately thanking him for his support, went on this journey and like met my people that all spoke my language, that
Yeah,
had been doing it, like Mary Greer and Rachel Pollack. Like these women go back to the 60s and 70s when it was all underground, and like those would be like your idols, to meet in this industry. And just seeing how other people read, that there were whole communities. And then, so that was after Facebook, because Facebook was like 2008, I think I got on. So
hmm,
at least there was a way you weren't just staying in touch with your tiny little community, because what if you didn't gel with those people? Then where do you go or what do you do?
right.
So that opened up a whole nother world for me. And that was one of most fabulous things that I ever did because I like felt understood when I got there. Because, when you're reading for your friends and talking to your friends and stuff like that, it's great, but they're not on your side of it. So you're not having the same kind of conversation.
Right.
They're on the receiving end, and I wanted to talk to practitioners or I wanted to be involved with other people that were doing it
Yeah.
and reading for each other and all the other ideas and millions of ways that you can use the tarot to help yourself and to learn and to, it just blew a whole nother world open for me.
So like with the tarot and you learning it, like go back to that time, was there a certain deck that you kind of resonated more with? Or like, because I know if anybody could see this right now, she has like a million decks
Yeah, look,
sitting
I'm
behind
sure
her.
here I can
But when you
goes all the way
first
to there.
started, did you do the original tarot or did you start with a different deck or did you have any, this might be like a couple-sided question, but did you have any decks that you just didn't, it just didn't feel right? And then there was like the one that you really resonated with?
So when I very first started, I did get the traditional Rider-Waite deck because that's what everybody starts with. That was one of the couple that my aunt had shown me. And that was the one that was recommended. Like that, I think that was the only one in the stores at times, to be perfectly honest.
Probably. Oh, I'm
I
sure.
got that one, and I had gotten a Morgan Greer deck, which is a 1970s deck.
Oh, wow.
Um, and that one was kind of neat. Like I liked it for the difference. So I learned the traditional Rider-Waite, and then I branched off into a couple of the other ones. And to be perfectly honest, at the onset, I was not thrilled with the art on the Rider-Waite. And
Mhm.
I wasn't really like connecting with it.
Right,
So it was from a scholarly place that I was using that book.
right,
I mean that deck rather. And then I had gotten the Morgan Greer, and then back then the Enchanted Tarot had come out. Like I'm trying to remember some of these are so early on these decks. And I don't
right,
even remember how I had heard about them because, again, there was no Facebook, there was no
right,
Amazon. Like, I don't even know how I came across these other than maybe I went to the store
right.
and saw them,
Oh,
but it was so limited. And so, but then I had a very hard time deciphering those pictures back to the Rider-Waite pictures because every artist has takes the liberty of interpreting the base meaning of the card, which is why you see all these decks behind me, because I am fascinated by the millions of ways there is to see one meaning.
right.
Similar to what you do in your psychic development classes, right? We say a word and
Mhm.
everybody goes around with what that word means.
Yeah.
Well, these tarot decks do the exact same thing. The tarot decks that are based on the Rider-Waite system
Hmm.
do the exact same thing. And then there's the Golden Dawn system, there's the Marseille, and then there are other card systems altogether completely different. But just to see how this artist took this one meaning and then turned it into this picture. So it's like getting a kaleidoscope view, like a million different views of the same meaning, which to me is huge because the world is a very big place and
Hmm.
people are so different. And the images, like another important thing to me too is to have people pick a deck because I like for them to at least resonate with the imagery. Because if
Right.
I pick out a deck that I love, and let's say I love the vampire deck, and you're not really all about darkness and vampires,
Right.
well, just looking at those cards are going to send you I don't even know if the words that come out of my mouth will mean anything, you know?
Gotcha. Yes, that
So it's
makes sense.
extremely, and I say that because I'm visual. Some people could care less if I was throwing bones in front of me. They just want to hear what I have to say. Like they're like,
Right.
I don't care because I'm like, do you want a picture of the reading? You could look at it later because that's important to me. And some people would like the video, they just want to
Right.
listen to it back or whatever. But I'm extremely visual, so that's why I have all of these decks. But the learning part of it is it's a slow go, especially back then,
Right.
because just because of there not being a lot of communities or people to speak to about it, and even if you get excited and you have an aha moment, but you don't have another practitioner to share with, it just lands flat,
Right.
like, I get it. I'm running to my husband and he's looking at me like, great,
Right.
whatever.
You're like, awesome. Good
Yes.
job, babe.
So I think finding community was huge for me. And it was community of other people who did it. And then similar to what we talked about with the spiritual groups, you
Yes,
feel your way through that. You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and
right,
everybody's not going to be your cup of tea.
right,
So you just blend yourself with the people that, are on the same wavelength as you. And I have play dates a lot online with people that I've stayed connected to from Reader Studio. I'm
right,
big on play dates. And so I
right,
would say, well, then let's just Zoom. It doesn't have to be an official class or anything. Let's just get
right.
together and practice or talk about what we're up against or, how's it going with clients or what changes are you seeing or, just to have that, just that place to have that conversation because you
Yeah.
can't get that. That's so important.
I know. And to see how much it's evolved from where you went to the beginning, where not having anybody, couldn't find but like two or three decks, like
Yeah.
nothing. And then now to a huge online community where you're like, I could ask questions. So, like, one of my other questions I'm wondering about, like with the tarot, is there any card that sticks out that you just could never really interpret or would have a hard time remembering? Or is there one card in the deck where like in your learning, not now, obviously, because
Right.
now you know them front, back, side, up, down, in a bag, like everywhere. But like in your journey, because I think like a lot of people when they start this journey, it can be overwhelming, like trying to remember the cards or what the meaning
78 cards. Yes.
or the several meanings of the cards, right? So like was there a card that just was like like just would frustrate you when you see it? You're like, I don't remember what this means, or this might mean this, but then it means something else, or
Yes. Anybody watching this that's even dabbled a little bit in the cards or remembers their early part of their journey, the court cards are the hardest freaking cards, which you would think they'd be easier to relate to because they're people cards.
right,
Whereas a lot of the other ones are, I mean, so major arcana are like big life lessons, big energy, right? Not
right.
people per se. They're personas, but not like everyday people kind of thing. The
Right.
situational things I feel like I gravitated to better, but then when it came to those court cards, I'm like, all right, pages are messengers, but this makes me think of this, like just trying to drill that in and
Right.
remember those things and be like, oh, and the elements, that's the other part too. Remembering the element that goes with the suit, and there's even conflict in the many people out there. Like for some people, wands is air and swords is fire. And that's another thing people will have to learn too as they go through it. These other card systems that are not rider weight based, justice and strength are switched. So the strength card, justice is 8 and strength is 11. And that didn't resonate with me. And my
Right.
birth card is a strength card, but it felt more right for the strength card to be the 8 and for justice, a balance card to be 11. Like
Right.
just for me, that worked. For
Right.
other people, it doesn't. So that's something that everybody has to reconcile for themselves. And the same thing about like they'll relate colors to the different systems, to the different suits you
Right.
know, that will be different for everybody. There is,
Yeah.
I guess at the end of the day, there is no one true, like you kind of make it your own. There's a baseline,
Right.
and then you have to go with what resonates for you because that's like trying to tell a right-handed person you have to write with your left hand. It doesn't,
Right.
you're
Work.
forcing against the flow. So you don't want to force against your own flow. Just keep researching and working with what works best with you is probably one of
Right.
the best things that you could do. But those court cards used to smack me in the face, and I'm just like, because now you're like, I don't know if this is a personality you should be taking on, or if this
Right.
is a person in your life, or whatever. And then you're trying to connect all the dots of the other things and the hierarchy and whatever. And so I just got this one of the things that helped me very much through that was relaying public figures to each of them.
Uh,
Like thinking of the personality of like so think of the Queen of Swords, right? She's
right.
all about pros and cons and cut and dry or whatever. So think of Maud. And again, now this is generational. I know I say things and you're like,
I,
"Hmm, I
is this your
know,
TV references? Because you
but
love your TV
I
references.
do.
I know,
TV
but I love it.
references. and
Of
also
course.
cartoon references, but we have a gap of time between us.
Yeah,
So,
just not
well, do
a
you
lot
remember
though.
Golden Girls? You know Golden
Yes.
Girls.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
So B.
Love.
Arthur. But B.
Okay.
Arthur is
Yes.
always that person. So you could think of she's always out to help, but she's very like she's not going to mince words, you know?
Very
So when you
sarcastic,
see that
tactful.
card, when when you see that card and then you have that attached to it like an energy,
Right.
now you can look at it and say either, and it wouldn't matter if you need to adopt that or that's a person in your life. You could explain that very simply.
Right.
Um, I think I had shared with you that time that we did the play date, like for the Knight of Pentacles, right? It's a knight sitting still, he's holding the coin, he's looking forward into the whole rest
Yes.
of his life and how's he going to plan it out. And on the TV show Family Ties, Alex P. Keaton knew in high school that he was going to be a politician and a financier. Like, so if you understand the drive, the thought process, the mentalness, you'll get the court cards. You
Right.
just have to figure out whose persona backs into what the basic description is,
Right.
and then you won't forget it. And I'm saying that for me as a visual TV addict.
Right.
So for somebody else, it could be a song
Of
that
course.
my daughter's all about song lyrics. So maybe you're going to look at those core cards and you're going to say, oh, the personality of this reminds me of this Carole King song or this song or whatever. So
Right.
again, it's tarot is a very personal journey. Like you're going to read and have an encyclopedia of references like no one else's because
Yeah.
it's your personal relationship with the deck. So it's a tool. And just think of, I like to always relate back card reading because it is a creative process to
Mhm.
like carpentry. Every
Right.
carpenter has a different thing of tools. Some carve, some build the architecture. Like they all have a different way that they go at it. And every single one of their creations are beautiful and they're blending their energy into whatever that creation is and
Yeah.
they're working with things that flow for them. So it's
Right.
no different than any other vocation, which is a creation of the of not only the tool, but it's blended with yourself. And
Right.
I think so if people don't try to put a square peg in a round hole, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
Just get as much data. And nowadays you can. The only thing I would warn against is just if you are if you could just energetically vet people that on the surface, because I know people, part of my frustration with, not with tarot or not with spirituality, but the fact that when people are entering or coming or becoming curious, they're so vulnerable because sometimes this is a last resort. Like every practical thing has not worked. So
Right.
now they're coming here. And there are a lot of people that see that coming from a mile away and want to use it to their best, outcome and
Right.
not in care for the person who's actually coming. So, whenever I encounter somebody like that, my goal is to help them be able to find the beginning of their path and continue to be curious and walk it and know how to just manage it themselves in what they decide to look into. The books that are on my shelf that are my Bible shelf are not going to be everybody's Bible shelf. There are some people that might be Jewish that are very attracted to the Catholic religion and or are very enthralled with saints or whatever. If something's calling to you, research it, look into it and see what resonates, like
Right.
because that to me is so important. Follow the breadcrumb trail. It was always to me about like a treasure hunt and a breadcrumb trail. And that's how I started finding all these things that spoke to me. Runes don't speak to me. Like there's tons of divination practices that don't speak to me, but there are the ones that do. That
Hmm.
doesn't mean anything. Crystals speak to me. I don't know how to work with all of them yet, but I have a lot of them.
Yeah.
And I love them for their energetic properties,
Yeah.
but whatever, people need to just pay attention to what speaks to them instead of what's trending or whatever. Like go backwards if you're feeling about very historical things. Some people might be attracted to the witch trials. Some people might be attracted to like the Nordic tradition. Some people might, whatever people are vibing with, there's information in there for you, from you, or you wouldn't be being led to go in that direction, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, just overall in general, having to do with spirituality, like that is the best thing. If you're finding somebody that wants to plot that path out for you, that mirrors their path or mirrors their benefit or anything of that nature, just be careful. That's all I
Yeah.
can say. Because it just, if it's not feeling 100% with you, then
Right.
question it and or just say no, thank you. You
Right.
know, you're not going to go, if you don't like liver and onions and somebody offers you liver and onions, you're going to say no, thank you. It's no
Right.
different.
Same thing with the tarot or any kind of tool,
Any
like you
kind
said,
of
even the bones
spiritual
or anything.
tool or group or anything, you know.
Yes. It's
And
okay to say
people,
no.
yes, and people are out there looking, for other kind of spiritual connections, like people that have either they're not finding what they once found in church or in their religious organization, so they're looking for other places. And it's okay. You could stick your toe in this one and see how it is. Like I went to plenty of community churches and to different organizations. The structured church thing just didn't work for me. There were certain things I would step in and then part of their values and their system didn't resonate with me.
Right.
Nothing, no judgment. It's just not for me, you know? Like, so if you can just remember that it's not that you're condemning anybody, you're just saying it's not for me and you're just moving along your path,
Yeah.
then, and there are tons of very spiritual priests within like Catholic churches that follow the protocol, but you just know they're different, by the words that they use. And that's why you can't really condemn anything or any organization because you don't know what special souls are participating inside, you know?
Yes.
So that's an
Yeah.
important thing.
Very. I love that. And then with your tarot readings, because you have been doing it for so long, and I kind of want to touch back because we were talking about, people not wanting to hear what you have to say. Have you ever had it where they know what you're saying is accurate, but that's not what they want to hear? They
Yes.
want it to be all sunshine and butterflies when they pay, and you're pretty much telling them exactly what is going on with their life, even though it might just be like pure shit. But
Yes.
then they're upset, like, no, I don't want to, that's not right, or I don't want to hear that. And it's like, but that's the truth, but they don't
Yeah.
want to have any part of that. And then they're like upset that it's like, well, why didn't you tell me I was gonna have a
Right.
great right? Have you ever had to deal with anybody like that where they have so much expectations that you're almost going to be predicting this amazing future, and then when you tell them like exactly who they are, what they got going on, they're like, no.
Well, I never know how to explain how I read, and that we touched on it a little bit. There's so many different types of readers. A lot of people are predictive readers, and they will go through. I'm all about free will. Our free will
Right.
can change anything from 1 nanosecond to the next, right?
Thousand
Our
percent right.
intention, anything that happens. So even in predictive stuff, it's predicting that this is the most likely outcome from this moment in time, right?
Correct. Right.
But that's not how I end up tapping in. So when I do readings for people, and I try to explain this up front so nobody's coming to me with expectations that I can't fulfill because
Good.
then I'm not your reader. I try to tell them how I read, and I also ask them to read things that I put online or ask somebody for a reference, like so you know who you're coming to.
Right.
Um,
But this is probably like learning this from the years of doing
yes.
readings to be like, no, I need to be very specific about what it is that I offer. So there is no
Yes.
confusion on that
Well,
part,
some
right?
people I think were pleasantly surprised in the early years when I did readings at like expos and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I didn't really say how I read. I didn't know there was a big difference. I didn't know everybody was coming with these expectations, but I would do their reading. So first I'll describe how I do readings or how I tap in.
Okay.
Basically, when I do a reading, what comes up for me, the intention of my readings are about empowerment. So, when the reading opens up for itself for the client, I start to look at it and I can feel and I can see um, either places where they're excelling, places where they're having pitfalls, if it's a big time in their life of a lot of um, spiritual lessons, when you have like an 11 card spread and six major arcana come out, shit is hitting the fan for real,
Right.
like, And it's usually a mix of, the wanted and not wanted cards, stuff like that. So I will explain about where they are now, energy that's working with that or not. And then kind of how they made their way there, some of the experiences they might have gone through while they're there. And the reason my business is called New Perspective is because my hope is always that when somebody comes in, you're not coming in because your life is grand and everything's great and you just kind of want to see what the cards are going to say. Everybody's got something. They're coming in because something's nagging at them, whether they want to address it or not is a whole nother story, but there's something, right?
Right,
But when we're sitting in our own shit, we have like the blinders. We can't see past the situation and the only outcome we believe is possible.
right.
So I'm hoping they're
Yep.
coming here so that they can see the many ways that they could look at this situation and maybe why it's presenting itself. This might be the third, fourth, or fifth time the same situation's presenting itself because we've handled it the same way for four, five, six, seven times. Like, is there a new way to acquiesce ourselves? People that are going back and forth into the same relationships, coming out of relationships, but picking the same person in a different body. Like they're not getting past the dynamics, but it's
Right,
a whole different person. And I get it. We're looking at life practically, but I like to look at it from a spiritual perspective of what did we come here to learn? Like every individual person has a tarot birth card, which will speak volumes about what the overarching message of this particular lifetime will be. Like in each lesson, this will exist, and then in everyday life, these are some of the things that you're going to come up against. So when I see that going through this reading, it's like, okay, is it possible to look at this now as an opportunity? Like the person who like so wronged you, but now has you on this different trajectory. Is it possible that that person was a blessing in disguise? Is
right.
it possible that that person is a spirit that's your arch nemesis and you guys made a contract before you came here and they said, yes, I'm going to be the asshole in your life and then you're going to go here or not. You could come back
Right,
and do it again. You could just keep playing along with the game. Or are you going to take the signs and say, oh, you know what? I am going to exercise my boundaries. I'm going to exercise self-care and I'm going to extricate you from my life, And then you've learned that lesson. And the person who has to be that shitty ass person in your life as a soul might have been the one that loved you the most because they signed up for the job, you
right,
know? Is
right,
it possible to look at life this way? Like, because I just believe in goodness in everybody. There's a good spark in everybody, and we're all here just learning all these different lessons and figuring out how to connect to each other and figure out our commonality instead of our differences,
right,
So it's not always this us and them thing. But so that's how I tend to read. Well, a lot of people don't want to know that stuff. So when you have somebody that wanted you to line up a little to-do list for them so they could come back to you every 6 months because they ran out of their to-do list and they don't know what to do next. I don't want those clients. I want the clients that say, my God, you gave me such a great tool and I never have to see you again. Like that's the people I want. Or maybe I see you once a year,
right.
once every
Once a year's
two
good.
years, or
Yeah,
whatever. We all need help,
that's
when we
right.
all need
Check-ins.
someone else to help us look at something.
Yes.
But those are the people. I do not want anybody knocking on my door saying, oh, dear God, I could not live without you. Oh, hell no. I am not your reader. Here, let me recommend someone else for you.
Oh,
Please
that's
no.
great.
I taught my children how to care for themselves at a very young age. I do not
Right.
anymore.
Right. You're just guiding them, you're confirming, you're validating what they got going
Yeah.
on, and that things, might get better, might have more bumps in the road. However, not want to do the predictive part, which might just come out in general. But yeah, I love that.
It does sometimes, and it's not
Oh,
even,
sure.
it's usually prediction I don't want to make. Like there was a woman that always was constantly had to have a man in her life, had to have, and I was like, oh my God, how many times are you going to go through this? And so finally she was on her own. She was being very independent. She was doing things of her own accord. And this was part of a little spiritual group that I was a part of. And I look at her and I go, oh, I don't even want to tell you this. She goes, what? I go, a man is going to come into your life, but he's not going to be like any of the other ones you've had before. Just remember I'm saying this. And a year later, she goes, "Oh, you were not kidding." And it didn't stay, and it challenged her and everything else. But that was the last thing I wanted to say to her because I had been pushing in the whole other direction, saying you need your independence before you can have another relationship because you don't
Right.
know who you are. You just keep melding into this. So I guess at the end of the day, my readings are about life lessons and why there might be shit in our lives because we're not listening to the lesson. And I like to get to people before the universe kicks them in the ass and throws them over the cliff. Like, because you could stop that from happening, you know?
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
I'm also not very good at taking my own advice, which is why I go to other readers because I'll just reshuffle the cards because I'm just telling me and I can tell the story any way I want.
Right.
So I will be 100% transparent about that. Just because I know how to tell you how to do it doesn't mean I listen.
You're like, oh yeah, it says I'm gonna be great.
That's right. Oh no, but this could also mean the tower card, right?
Yeah.
The
Oh
shit
yeah.
falling down around you. But this could also mean enlightenment. So I'm gonna
Right.
have an enlightening week. That's what's bad when you're too smart for your own good.
I know, where you're like, I'm just gonna change that. This probably wasn't even for me. It's probably for somebody else. So
Right.
let
Oh, I
me
must be picking up
decide.
someone else's energy.
Let me reshuffle, and then there's
Yeah.
that tower card again. Be like,
No,
oh,
and then
great.
they just jump out of the deck.
I
Like
know.
you
They're
could get
like,
hit over. I did it one week. In one week, I pulled cards from three different decks, and the same three fucking cards came out. And
oh
I was like,
wow,
are you kidding me? Three different decks. So I was like,
needed to hear
okay,
that,
message received. I
right?
even dragged my husband, and I'm like, look at this. You're not gonna believe it. And he was
Oh
like,
yeah,
yeah.
that's like you can't make that up.
You need a
Like,
witness. But I'll
yeah.
just share one quick story from the very beginning. When I first started out, then the spiritual group I was a part of was like, just to offer readings for like $5. And we'll have people over and we'll be like social in the living room and you can have the back room and just do the readings. And so I never like to read for people who are encouraged to come get a reading if they don't want one
Right.
because
I
they
agree.
are just already like apprehensive or they have this idea or they're petrified. Like people are petrified, like you're going to see through their soul and every dark secret they ever had and you're going to puke it on the table. Like that's not how it works, you know? It does, but people have said that to me. They're like, I thought you were going to see about all this bad stuff I did when I was a kid. And I'm like, oh my God, no. About where you are now, but I digress. So this woman came in, her husband had passed like 3 years prior, and I did this reading for her, and it showed her the ability, like just the openness to be able to really relearn about herself, like come into her own. I saw her traveling, like I saw her going on a cruise, but it was with other women, and it was really about self-growth
Oh,
and all this stuff. And she was like, and so I say all this, and she doesn't say anything. She's got a tight-lipped frown on her face, and I said, well, what would you like to know? Do you have any questions? I always ask that at the end because I don't want people walking away having an open question. I want to know when I'm going to become a grandmother because that was the next practical step in the traditional life.
oh wow.
And she could care less about anything else that was said. So
Oh.
she was just sitting and waiting for that next practical step to be needed in
Mhm.
her family in another arena, even though her life was calling for her to
Right.
blossom. And then by the time the grandchild would come, she would come back a whole nother whole person to that dynamic. So when she left, she told the woman who had organized the whole thing, she didn't tell me anything I wanted to hear. That spoke volumes, though. Think about what she said.
Right. That I
I
didn't. I
came in
won't hear
only
one.
wanting to hear a certain thing,
Right.
and you did not say it. Well, that's not how life works.
Right. Exactly.
It's
And
not how it works.
that's true because that's you can't have expectations and you can't push away because if that was accurate, she's probably like, well, I already know that. So tell me what I don't know, right?
Right,
So it's
right.
like, oh, well, I want to know when I'm having a grandchild. But it's like, but that's also free will for your children.
Well, I was a little, see, I'm a snarky tarot reader too. So I was like, well, is your daughter having sex? Because if she's not, then you probably.
I mean, that's true though. That's a valid question
Well,
to
no,
be
I did have
reflected.
somebody I read for where the daughter and the son-in-law were not getting pregnant. I don't like to do readings on other parties that are not there giving permission.
Right, because
That's kind of like an ethical thing for me. I can ask What does this person need to know to be able to aid the situation? Like that's how I
Right.
will ask the question as a part of it to link it because people want to know about their children, what's going on in their children's lives, and all these other things. And I just feel funny, like I'm a voyeur in their life without their permission. If they gave permission, that's fine, but I don't like to do that. So I will ask that we phrase the question in such a way is what information is it pertinent for you to know so that you could be the best solution and or assistance in whatever circumstance they find themselves in.
Right.
So that's how I would word that. But one mom was very concerned about her daughter or whatever, and I would ask, what is it possibly that she might need to know about the situation so she could be of assistance? And what was coming to me at the time is one or both of them were not really in want of children, but the one was doing it for the other.
Right.
And so that energy of the not want is canceling out the energy of the want, and you're back to zero. So,
Mhm.
like energetically, that's how things happen, you know? That could be part of their life lesson or something.
Yes.
So, just having the possibility of that knowledge now could allow that mother to maybe open up a conversation with one or either of them or both of them at a moment where it felt right to do so,
Mhm.
to be like, well, is there anybody, are either of you hesitant about this at the time? And
Right.
like in an open space that where it's okay, where people finally admit, like, I'm petrified and I don't know if I'm going to be a good mom. So then
Right.
you're not all in and you're scared. So that's going to mess up your whole system, how things work and how things come together. It just does,
Yeah.
so I will do things that way, but I don't like to do. I have a lot of women too that would be dating multiple people,
Hmm.
and they always want to know who's the one or who's the best one for me, who's the right one for me. So I devised this system where I use one particular deck because it really emotionally speaks to people of like kind of who they are, where they're at. And I would say, okay, you think in your head who person A is, and I'm going to pull three cards and I'll give you a description of that. Then you think who person B is. So now they're just informed going back into these relationships on, is this something they want to participate in or not? One guy had just lost his mother and his mother was his world and he was going to be in mourning for a long time. So if the lady was okay with that and didn't mind that she was still taking second seat to somebody who wasn't even here anymore, and
Right.
she was okay in that healing journey, fine, just something you need to know. There
Yeah.
was the second person was somebody who was married to their restaurant, to their job, and that was always going to come first. So if you're so independent that you're fine, that you don't need a lot of that person's time and you're happy that they're tied up with something else, that's great. But if you want to be like it's funny, the theme was them not being the number one
Hmm.
person in both of
Right.
these things. But a lot of it is forewarned is forearmed. So when those scary cards come out,
Hmm.
that to me is like this is giving you an opportunity to see down the path that there's a log blocking you,
Hmm.
right? And you're going to have to figure out your way over it, but you're being given this information now so you could do a little research or just even decide I don't want to go down that path.
Right.
That's what the readings are good for. To me, that's what they're good for. So those are some of the stories that I definitely remember. And I had one story where a mom got a reading for her daughter, and the daughter believed in twin flames, I think it was. Like I don't that none of that stuff gels with me, like the twin souls or twin flames or whatever the wording is for all of that. Um, and I had done a reading for her, and she was furious, like to the point that she sent me back a text message this big about how dare I say this and how dare I say that about, well, do you really want this particular thing? Or I'm asking questions as we're going through the reading,
Yeah.
if that's what's
Yes.
required or whatever. And she just didn't like, and I said, not everybody is for everybody. And I really hope that you find whatever on your journey. But again, that is another one of well, this person thought that this was going to tell her everything she wanted to
Right.
hear and
Yes.
solidify and confirm for her. And when it didn't, I was the bad guy,
Correct.
which,
Yeah.
and then I just kind of released that energy and said,
Right.
I'm sorry, I was not what you were expecting, but here's how things go. And maybe you'll find somebody that you more resonate with, in this capacity. But I
Yeah.
also feel like the mother was at a last ditch effort to get this girl up and out of a dark place.
Yes.
And it was so trying to buy a reading for somebody or make somebody get a reading or whatever, if you've had a great experience, that's great. But if they're not open to it,
Hmm.
ready for it, in the right mindset for it, it
I
can be
agree.
a disaster.
I agree.
So
You
I
gotta do it on
recommend that
your
you
own.
do not do that.
I agree. I think that can get very tricky and very gray waters when it comes to that. And it might not be anything that they wanted. Like you said, it's more of the person buying the gift certificate or more of the person that enjoyed it and they want everybody to feel their joy, but it's not meant for everybody.
No, some
Yeah, I
people
agree.
roller
I
coasters set
agree.
them free, and some people roller coasters make them want to puke.
Sick.
It's the
Yeah.
same thing.
Right.
But we want to give them that free feeling, but they
Right.
might not get
They
that.
might not. They might feel sick when they leave our space.
Exactly. They might be like,
And
what in good God's name was that?
right. So, like for anybody on their, spiritual journey or their tarot journey or anything, right? Like even a mediumship, what would you give? What would be like one piece of advice if anybody was listening? What would you give them if you could tell yourself, your younger self, something that you learned on your journey? If anybody's listening in, that is.
I would just say, first and foremost, God, just trust yourself. Like, and you've said that to me a million times on the mediumship part of it.
Mhm.
And I've said that to a lot of people and that I've coached on tarot journeys and stuff like that, is that there's no Staples easy button. So you don't press a button and everything downloads into you. And I don't care how great technology has gotten or whatever. Um, to me, learning the tarot and or even going out on your spiritual journey is something that needs to be, you're blending with the energy of it, you're absorbing it, and you're experiencing it. And if you don't do all of those things, learn about it first, find out how and where you connect with it, and then discover how do you blend that into your everyday life. If you're not doing those three things, you're taking a shortcut, and in the long run, it's not going to work, So I would just say be patient with yourself.
Right.
You could put it away if you need to for a little while and come back to it. It's okay if you pick it up and you like it and it speaks to you now and then it doesn't speak to you again for 15 years. Like there's no schedule, there's no time clock, there's no any of that. And and you don't have to read for other people. A lot of people just want to learn it to have that as kind of a lot of people use that as their way to speak to their higher self. So use it in whatever way feels most comfortable, be patient, and really, it's like decorating your house. You want it to be yours.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So I think getting to that place and feeling comfortable, it doesn't mean don't let all of the external education come in, but you keep what resonates and you can, put aside what doesn't.
Yeah, I
I think
agree.
that's important.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
This has been
Thank you
fun.
for
Thank
telling your
you.
story. So everybody could check her out at New Perspective Tarot on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and
No
your web.
TikTok.
Oh, you're not on
I'm
TikTok?
not on TikTok yet. I'd really
Oh,
get on TikTok now to look.
okay. Sorry. She might be on TikTok. So,
Your
keep
best
her.
place, I would say the best place to find me is just under my name on Facebook because
Perfect.
that's a good way to figure out what I'm all about. And I do readings periodically, just general readings. And my website is www.newperspectivetarotreadings.wordpress.com.
Okay. So you guys go follow her journey, even when she starts offering mediumship readings
So
eventually
I'll be
one
asking for
day.
practice people. So
Perfect. So make sure you follow her pages, follow her, see her, love on her, and you're amazing. So thank you so much for
thank
being here
you.
today. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for listening in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I will see you next time. Have a beautiful day and